technical issues. Okay, so my apologies for the delayed start. We ran into a couple technical issues, as many of you probably saw, but we've got everything up and running properly so that we're able to address this special meeting. So are we good on Facebook and we're good on online in recording now? Outstanding. That being the case, then it looks like it's going to be 6:10 is the actual call to order. And I would ask the manager for a roll call.
Thank you. Valerie Rentaylor.
Here.
Matt Castilla.
Here.
Kevin Collins.
Here.
Paul Gamrat, Mayor. Here. And we have with us also Diane Law.
Here.
Adam McDowell.
Here.
Norma Greco.
Here.
Thank you, Norma. And President Jay Dorn.
I am still here. All right. Having roll call been completed, if we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah. Okay, so begins the special meeting regarding the conditional use hearing. At this time, again, I will apologize, as I said, for the delay, but we will go through public comment. Public comment, again, as a reminder, you have up to 3 minutes. This is for residents and taxpayers. Please state your name and your address at that time. The borough manager we'll kind of go through the names and make sure that we get everybody in order and give everyone the opportunity to speak. We do want to make sure that everyone who is in our borough who would like to speak has the chance to speak, at which time, once everyone has spoken, we will move on to the action items. That being the case, I will look to our borough manager to identify the order in which we will be calling on people to speak.
Mr. President, I did want to note for the record, the council had an executive session both last night and prior to the meeting for quasi judicial deliberations.
Thank you for pointing that out. I would be remiss if I did not. So I appreciate that, Mr. Rob. This time we'll go through for public comment. I don't know what the order is. So if you'd like to call them through. And the joy of technical difficulties, just give me one more second here. My apologies, but everyone will have the opportunity to speak without a doubt. Okay, so we'll begin with Murray Bilby. I know that the borough manager will promote you, and then you'll be able to speak. And as I said, everyone will have the opportunity to speak who wishes to speak. Mr. Bilby, if you'd like to unmute, you will have 3 minutes from the time that you begin speaking as an opportunity to speak.
Okay, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not technical, I do have a few. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Ah, terrific. Okay, this is Murray Bilby. I'm at 2424 Churchill Road. I got just a few comments, summarize a few things. All right, a distribution center, especially one of this magnitude, is unquestionably inappropriate for our location. It's a C3 or M1 business, and as such, distribution center does not belong in a residential community, especially one that's zoned C1. Should never have been considered, must be rejected outright because the detrimental effects far outweigh any supposed benefits. With the supposed potential risk of the atomic storage removed, a legitimate developer can fill the existing bedrock area with appropriate C1 businesses, from offices to restaurants to apartments, and still maintain the integrity of Churchill Borough and without destroying the watershed. This project will irreversibly damage the existing value of real estate, causing a significant drop in home values and a resultant drop in all the taxes collected from the borough right straight through to the school district. It will also significantly increase the size of the borough budget to support the peripheral services, which will necessitate additional tax disproportionate to what's proposed in the project. It'll be an eyesore, all directions, when the current trees are removed and the retaining walls are constructed. Like all such facilities, it will glow all night long as a 24-hour operation. It will be illuminated on all sides, illuminated at the entry roads and the exit roads, as well as illuminating the parking area of the trucks and employees on all four sides. It will glow. Since the Churchill infrastructure cannot support the massive increase in heavy truck traffic, the increase in heavy truck traffic, both filling the facilities, plus the outbound shipping to the last mile facilities, will mean degradation quality of life. There'll be rumbling trucks every minute, every hour, every day, nonstop, every day of the year. And with that traffic congestion comes the noise and the air pollution. The majority of the residents are clearly opposed to this project. We want development, but not this kind. It's in the best interest of Churchill Borough. So I urge the council to totally reject this Hillwood proposal for its detrimental effects on the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bilby. I appreciate your comment. We're going to move next to Susan Sterrett. You are muted, Susan, so we will wait till you are able to unmute.
Susan Sterrett, 1903 Hampstead Drive. Council members, you hold great power in your hands this evening, power to protect. The state's recognition and respect for provisions in local zoning codes about residents' rights to clean air and water have increased in recent years. Council's judgment in interpreting and enforcing the borough zoning code via its authority to grant and deny conditional use permits holds great weight. As council members, you have the responsibility to uphold the provisions in the borough zoning code. Your decisions in favor of protecting residents and neighbors will be respected. You can deny this permit. Your decision this evening concerns only one specific proposal by one particular applicant. To earn approval of a conditional use permit, the first step for an applicant is to show that their proposal meets the relevant portions of the zoning code, including Article 4, General Regulations, and Article 5, Conditional Uses. The applicant has disregarded this requirement, even after it was pointed out and they were given the opportunity. Their attempt to trick us into thinking that the reviews of their impact studies by the borough engineer constituted compliance with the borough zoning code did not work here. In the public hearing, even the borough engineering firm involved in the reviews denied that. The applicant's response has been yet another faulty argument aimed to evade this, the most basic of requirements for a permit application. So you should deny this permit. It's not even clear what approval of this permit application would mean, as the design information in Churchill Creek's application is so poor. The plans to reconfigure the site to allow this conditional use are still woefully incomplete, and the details that are there are inconsistent. All you need do to see this is to read the latest deficiency letter from the Pennsylvania DEP, the one dated December 15th, in response to the applicant's evasive and unresponsive replies to the previous deficiency letter, reflects the truly mortifying lack of attention to fundamental engineering design requirements. Lest anyone think the situation can be handled with custom crafted conditions placed on the conditional use permit, I assure you that it cannot. The design process doesn't work that way. And anyway, it is inappropriate for council to try to use conditions of a conditional use permit as promissory notes to put Band-Aids on the design information submitted in the permit application. I hope with all my heart that you will recognize and live up to your responsibility to enforce the Borough of Churchill zoning code this evening. Deny Churchill Creek's application for this conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. I appreciate your comments. Up next is Elizabeth Cashman.
My name is Elizabeth Cashman. I live at 8 Holland Road. In previous public hearings, the residents have pointed out glaring omissions in the required reports, such as Hillwood insisting that Parkway truck traffic servicing the warehouse was irrelevant, or Hillwood declining to evaluate the 2 years of construction, air, noise, and water impacts, and the way they averaged away the traffic, noise, and air pollution impacts from surge operations. You were presented defective studies. You can and should vote no simply because Hillwood has not met its obligation to produce valid assessments. Deliberate omissions and misrepresentations should not be tolerated. Given the whitewashed reports, can the council say what is the worst air pollution level expected to occur along Churchill Road, and how long will it last? On Graham Boulevard, do you know which will be the louder? The noise from the trucks tooling around the warehouse, or the noise of their acceleration and deceleration on the parkway? You can't know, because both surge operations and Amazon trucks on the parkway were deliberately left out of the air quality and noise reports. No one can evaluate these impacts, and that is how Hillwood wants it. Not only are the reports flawed and deceptive, they still evaluate preliminary designs. Hillwood, by its own admission, hasn't given you final state-approved plans for traffic, sewage, or stormwater. 6 days ago, as Susan mentioned, the PADEP issued its 3rd letter of significant technical deficiency to Langen. I'm sure you have all read this 13-page list of errors, omissions, and warnings. After 3 tries, Langen still can't get the designs right. In the letter, the PADEP cautioned Hillwood that if explosives are required to lower the site surface, they will need a whole new set of studies and permits. Does the council know definitively whether blasting will be needed? If the answer is no, it would be irresponsible to approve the permit at this juncture. If you vote yes tonight and find out later that the project exposes residents to serious risks or the borough to unforeseen liabilities, there is no going back. The permit is granted. Be assured that Hillwood will not go away if you vote no tonight. They will revise and resubmit the studies, and eventually you will get the information needed to determine if the project is compatible with the Churchill zoning code. But Hillwood needs the time and the motivation to do a proper job, and you can give it to them by voting no tonight. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Cashman. Appreciate your comments. I'm sorry, who's next? Julie. Oh, Julie Ray. Okay, I'm sorry. It's not popping up on me, but Julianne Ray is, Andre is up next.
Hello, I'm Julie Carroll, and I live at 67 Loxley Drive. When I finish, Ray Hodge would like to speak. As I listened to the more than 60 hours of public hearings, it became more and more evident that the applicant had not met the criteria to have their conditional use application approved. Reading the proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law prepared by attorney Dwight Ferguson further solidified what I know. The applicant has not proven that they meet the criteria contained in section 304 of the Borough Zoning Ordinance. As elected representatives of the residents of Churchill, Borough Council's duty is to deny the conditional use application of Churchill Creek project. There are many residents of Churchill who are committed to finding a commercial use for the former Westinghouse site that is consistent with the character of the borough. Please give us the opportunity.
Okay, I am Ray Hodge at 67 Loxley Drive also. I'm speaking tonight to request that you deny a conditional use permit to the Churchill Creek project. You have heard from your residents. Heed their words and their wisdom. Respect and apply their intelligence as you judge what is best for our Churchill community. Consider reality when you think about the number of trucks on our roads 24/7, 365 days a year. This place will not stop night and day. No relief for us, no break. There will be noise and air pollution and light pollution, water problems. This project will cause destruction of trees, animal habitats, and the peace of Churchill and residents. No relief from any of it. And what about your legacy? What do you want to leave on your page of history from 2021? Amazon Hill? I ask you to vote from your heart. Each of you vote your conscience, using what you know as the truth and reality of the situation. It does not matter what the council members down the table are doing or in another room are voting. This will be your history and what you leave behind. Please, I beg you, deny Churchill Creek Project, Hillwood, Amazon, a conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments as well. Next up is Steve Frank.
Thank you very much. I am Steve Frank, and I also speak for my wife, Kathy, both residents at 2010 Garrick Drive. The next few hours are sure to be the most important in Churchill Borough's 87-year history, as we find out if it's a thumbs up or thumbs down in regards to allowing for the construction of a gigantic distribution center, slated to be twice the size of Monroeville Mall on approximately 25% less land area, and clearly an industrial use in the midst of our residential community. The proposal to build such a use would most surely have been cursed by the borough's founders, as it reeks of an attempt by a large multinational company and their developer to hijack our community and alter its very essence. After listening to hours of the developer's experts, it defies logic that our residential infrastructure of roads and service systems could support this type of industrial use. It defies logic that the roar of 18-wheelers on our residential streets 24 hours a day, every day and all year would not present as a noise nuisance. Don't think so? Try mowing your lawn with your gas-fired lawnmower at 3 o'clock in the morning and see if your neighbors mind. It defies logic that the fumes, particulate matter, and other noxious nuisances would not adversely affect all of us, whether pro or con, in ways that may become frighteningly clear only after time has passed. It defies logic that light pollution, water runoff, and potential for flooding and crushing traffic jams on our roads and the adjacent parkway will not result, no matter what Hillwood's experts claim. And it defies logic that our homes, our most prized possessions other than our families, will not be adversely affected. Who will want to stay here? And for that matter, who will want to come? Your very own fellow residents, highly qualified and professional, advised you in the form of extensively researched, sworn and videotaped testimony of all of these admonitions, free of charge, in a valiant effort to sway you from making a mistake and inflicting this on us. And please do not rationalize with a mantra of jobs. We are all pro-growth and employment to the core. Never was a question. Amazon needs a distribution center in Allegheny County, and one will come, as will the jobs, but the center itself must be in an industrial zone. I humbly ask you that you void yourselves of external influences, such as school board members and other county officials and all the rest, all of whom appear to be more than eager to use our borough and its citizens as pawns in their never-ending quest for more funds. I ask you this evening to not sacrifice our way of life, our health,
Mr. Frank,
our
that is
families, and our homes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for abiding by the time, and I appreciate that and your comments as well. Moving up next is Ms. Pellegrini.
Okay, sorry. Hi, good evening. I'm assuming you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Jean Pellegrini. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Jane Pellegrini, who resides at 461 Woodland Hills Drive. She's a 50-year resident of Churchill Borough. She'd like to say, I stand firmly against the approval of the proposed Amazon distribution center for our small residential borough. There are infinite detriments of this project to our community forever. We will lose every benefit, every resident who decided and will decide to come here based on how our borough is currently. I've enjoyed those benefits for 50 years, and I'd like to see those passed on to future residents. I had confidence in my community leaders for all these years, but I question this now after listening for the past months to many of the testimonies given by very intelligent neighbors of mine. What I want you to know is our safety will be heavily compromised. And I put that firmly on the record, anticipating that if this is approved, I and other elderly, lifelong and new residents will end up in some sort of compromising and unsafe road hazard with Amazon, its delivery trucks and employees' cars. I also want to put on the record that we will get sicker from the environmental hazards posed by this project. We will lose the value of our property that we have so carefully maintained, and in our case for over 50 years. We will lose the beauty and familiarity of our small borough if you approve this project this evening. There's a lot of weight in your power tonight. Please do the right thing by all of us and vote no. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Move up. Up next is Sandy Fox.
My name is Sandy Fox, and I reside at 38 Holland Road in Churchill. There are so many reasons to deny this project. You have heard them all from residents over the course of the year. On October 22nd, I emailed council members a link to a Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court appeal decision filed June 2016. The appeal involved a 2014 decision by Ambler Borough in Montgomery County to deny a conditional use permit for a townhouse development. I shared with you an excerpt from page 10 of that decision, which I will now read. Quote, in fact, the trial court notes that council cited numerous deficiencies as a basis for its denial. However, in actuality, council could have denied the request with only one deficiency. This is because a conditional use must comply with all ordinance requirements. In short, in its discretion, council could have denied applicants' conditional use request on any one of the 25 enumerated deficiencies that it cited in its order, end quote. Now I read to you an excerpt from section 304-23 of the Churchill zoning code that the applicant must comply with for a conditional use permit here. Quote, no pollution of air by fly ash, dust, smoke, vapors, or other substance shall be permitted, which is harmful to health, animals, vegetation, or other property, end quote. This proposal will bring hundreds of diesel tractor trailer trucks into and out of the site daily, every 2 minutes, 24/7, 365 days a year. There are 450 homes within 1,000 feet of the site and 2 schools directly across the street. It was well established in objector testimony and by the expert testimony of Dr. Deborah Gentile on August 24th of the public hearing that diesel emissions are harmful to the health of children and adults, and that fine particulate matter, also known as PM 2.5, from diesel exhaust gets lodged deep in the lungs where it cannot be expelled and is associated with stunted lung development in children, asthma, lung cancer, adverse pregnancy outcomes, heart attacks, and premature death. Which brings me to section 304-31 of the Churchill zoning code. Quote, the proposed use shall not involve any element or cause any condition that may be dangerous, injurious, or noxious to any other property or persons, end quote. You can deny this permit on the basis of the many deficiencies of this project, but you only need one. Please protect us from harm and vote no on the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Appreciate your comment. Up next is Susan O'Keefe.
Hello, everyone. I am Suzanne O'Keefe. I reside at 2016 Hampstead Drive, and my property is 2040 Hampstead Drive. I would ask everyone to consider where these studies and this initiative is coming from. I guess I can read this. I don't need to screen share. I'll just read what I wrote. Amazon's moral collapse. Let's think about that for a minute. We just watched the Edwardsville warehouse collapse in a tornado. There were 6 deaths. Amazon would not let workers leave. Amazon kept everyone working despite the National Weather Service tornado warnings that have been going on for 36 hours. This is not an isolated event. There is no emergency training in any Amazon facility that I've read about in all the newspaper reports. In September, in New York City, workers were pushed to make their shifts during deadly floods during Ida. In June, in the Pacific Northwest heat wave, workers were pushed to work at maximum speeds, even in 90-degree indoor temperatures. That's not even the half of it. There is this myth of Amazon jobs. But did you know that only 7 people, 7 at Amazon's Edwardsville warehouse were full-time employees? 7. Almost all were delivery drivers in their 20s who work as contractors. In fact, the more than 250,000 drivers of Amazon's delivery network do not work for Amazon, but for over 3,000 contractor companies. They do that because it avoids liability for accidents and risk, and because it limits labor organizing. This is the kind of company we're dealing with. The idea that Woodland Hills grads will get scholarships or good jobs from Amazon, you think? That is not going to happen. Amazon plans to do the same thing in Churchill they do everywhere else, which is ignore regulations and safety, avoid liability, ruin neighborhoods, and plummet property values. Why? Because Amazon is a company without conscience for whom workers are chaff and profit is God. People know this. They know it. Housing list prices in Churchill have already dropped by $80,000 thanks to the council's willingness to even consider this proposal. And this is bigger than Churchill. Stand up to them and the whole world will be with us. Stand up to them and people will move in instead of scramble to get out of here. Their application attempts to provide cover for their true nature. We've shown through our months of testimony that it has failed. The studies were defective in so many ways. As you know, Amazon and their proxies.
I apologize, but that is the time. So I do appreciate your
Can
comment.
I just have one more minute or one more second? I just want to show a picture. This, if you can see.
Duly noted, Ms. O'Keefe.
The caption is, let them call him the underdog. Charlie knew he had
That
the
is
only
time.
thing it really
Thank you,
took.
Ms. O'Keefe. Thank you. I appreciate it. We're moving on to the next. Jennifer Krona Huffman is next.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jennifer Corona Huffman, and I live at 1618 Williamsburg Place. For more than 60 Zoom hours and well over 100 personal hours, I've listened, researched, discussed facts surrounding this potential development of a mega warehouse in our residential neighborhood. After all of that, I cannot find one positive reason for this development that would in any way cancel the dozens of negative reasons should this behemoth be constructed in Churchill. The health, safety, and welfare of not only Churchill residents, but our students, all of the surrounding communities, along with anyone using the I-376 corridor between downtown Pittsburgh and Monroeville, will be significantly impacted in a multitude of negative ways. I implore council to vote no and only no. Please save Churchill. Don't destroy it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Huffman. I appreciate your comments. Up next is Peter Spiritus. My apologies.
My name is Peter Spurdes and I live at 1903 Hampstead Drive. On July 14th, 2021, the Planning Commission voted to recommend that a conditional use permit be granted to the Churchill Creek project, subject to a wide variety of 59 extra conditions covering traffic, noise, lights, parking, air quality, stormwater, construction activities, and landscaping. However, let me quote from a court case about a conditional use permit in nearby Oakmont. Quote, the Council of the Borough of Oakmont Borough Council appeals an order of the Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County trial court setting aside 14 of the 33 conditions imposed by Borough Council in connection with its grant of a conditional use to HHI Trucking Supply Incorporated. The trial court set aside the conditions because the evidence of record did not support their imposition. Finding no error in the trial court's conclusion, we affirm. The conditions that were imposed by the borough but set aside by the court included reimbursement for engineering fees, regulation of noise, hours where trucks would be allowed to make deliveries, allowable dust levels, requiring air quality tests, and modification of roads. In addition to legal questions about enforcing conditions against Hillwood, there are huge logistical and engineering problems that are due to the enormous size of the proposed building and the proposed modification of the hill to support such a large building. Hillwood is proposing to build an enormous building by leveling a hill that contains contaminated soil over an abandoned mine next to a nuclear waste facility and a major road in the middle of a residential neighborhood that is already subject to flooding and has problematic sewer hookups. This is a mind-bogglingly difficult task, and a recent letter from the DEP about the Hillwood plan does not provide any confidence that Langen Engineering has the engineering competence to do this safely. The letter from the DEP of December 15th about just erosion and pollution sediment control lists 11 pages of significant technical deficiencies in the Hillwood application. If you grant the conditional zoning permit to Hillwood, these deficiencies and lack of specification imply that there is no fixed plan about the building and site layout you would be approving, since the proposed building and layout may have to undergo significant changes. Who is going to make sure that the maintenance demanded by the DEP occurs? Who is going to do the maintenance if the site is ever abandoned? Who is going to oversee the construction to make sure that the plan is being followed? Every change that is made to a complex, interrelated problem like Hillwood's proposed massive construction has significant ramifications for other parts of the plan and requires extensive reevaluation of large parts of the plan in order to make sure that the plan as a whole is safe. Who in the borough has the time, the money, and the competence to take responsibility for overseeing this enormously complicated undertaking?
Mr. Spiritus, I appreciate your comments, but it is time. Again, I do appreciate what you're commenting. We're going to have to move forward. Up next will be Eric Grotzinger.
Thank you, Jay. Please start my timer after I introduce myself. Eric Rotzinger, 2373 Hollywood Drive. Here are the facts, reasons, and support for approving the Hillwood conditional use application. 1, Senator Costa, in a letter supporting the project, stated, for the past 2 years, Hillwood has engaged in extensive good faith conversations with stakeholder groups, including Churchill Borough, Woodland Hills School District, Governor Tom Wolf, PA Department of Community and Economic Development Secretary Dennis Davin, Allegheny County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, Allegheny County Economic Development Director Lance Chimka, PennDOT, the Port Authority, the Blackbridge Civic Association, myself, and a number of other elected officials and community leaders to provide a transparent vision of their project, solicit community feedback, and demonstrate their commitment to delivering a successful project the borough, region, and Commonwealth can be proud of, that will provide thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenue over the new facility's lifespan. 2, simply put, and confirmed by Senator Costa, no other feasible use for the property has been proposed in 20 years, given its massive demolition and remediation cost. 3, the Hillwood proposal is unanimously supported by the Woodland Hills School Board of Directors. 4, Hillwood conducted, submitted, refined, and resubmitted numerous professional engineering studies demonstrating zoning compliance. All these critical studies have been finalized and approved by the borough's engineers, other professional experts, and relevant governmental agency. Acceptable mitigations and project improvements have been agreed to. 5, any approval may also include important reasonable conditions imposed by the borough. 6, the economic impact. Based on a $300 million project, annual revenue over $8 million for our school district, over $2 million for the borough, and over $1 million for Allegheny County. This project would produce more than 2,000 direct and indirect construction jobs and 1,500 permanent full-time jobs with a living wage, immediate benefits, and education reimbursement. Council members, vote yes for this project. It is economically powerful, timely, and has widespread support. I believe it is Churchill's future. Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your comment. Up next is April Klein.
Hi, Jay. This is April Klein, 18 Holland Road. Can you hear me? I'm on the phone.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, for this final opportunity to speak out about the proposed Amazon Distribution Center in Churchill. Our Churchill Council is well aware of the reasons why my family opposes the current plan for this huge Amazon Distribution Center in Churchill. I will not reiterate all of those oppositions. You can refer to my pro se objector testimony from August 12th, 2021 for the details. The applicant's plan for this specific distribution center does not conform to Churchill Borough's comprehensive plan for our community. And you will recall our community spent many weeks with an environmental consulting firm talking about what our comprehensive plan for Churchill, Wilkins, and Monroeville should be, and this use does not conform to that plan. Nor does it meet all of the conditional use criteria listed in the Borough Zoning Code, which previous speakers have mentioned, specifically Code 304.21, Section C, F, G, and H, and also 301-37.1B. At a recent hearing, one of the last hearings, Hillwood representatives insinuated that our borough engineer signed off and approved the traffic impact study and the environmental studies. I don't believe that's entirely accurate. The engineer stated that the traffic impact study was submitted, which is required by the zoning code, but in no way did he indicate that he approved the traffic impact study or any other environmental studies. So that insinuation, I think is pretty interesting. It kind of shows that Hillwood has not been entirely honest or transparent with our community. So I'm going to keep this short. And in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a traffic engineer, but I can read, and I've read our zoning code many times, and it's clear that the conditional use criteria, all of them, have not been met. So the only legal option is for council to deny the applicant's conditional use application as it was submitted for the current project. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. As always, we appreciate them. Up next is Bill Saunders. Bill Saunders.
Hello, my name is Bill Saunders and I live at 8 Holland Road. Churchill Council has an historic vote to make tonight. You have spent many hours considering this proposal and it deserves this much attention because it will affect the lives, property values, and safety of many residents in the borough. I urge you to err on the side of caution. There are still many, many unresolved issues in the Hillwood application. You have heard numerous reports of the deficiencies, documented in detail by competent engineers, scientists, doctors, and other Churchill residents. And most recently, as noted by others tonight, the third such report by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, detailing now over 100 compliance deficiencies as of only 6 days ago. Don't ignore these warnings. Don't go down in history as the council that voted blind and deaf to the concerns of their citizens and the state environmental regulators. Hillwood will have other chances to develop that land. All we are asking is that you make them do it right. It needs to be done in a way that protects your neighbors. You have the power and the responsibility to make sure that it's done with minimal harm and risk to the community. This current application does not meet that standard. We ask you to stay firm until it does. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Saunders. We appreciate them. Moving on, next is Nicolette Armstrong.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, thank you. I really do appreciate this time to speak. And I'm nowhere near the other Churchill
Ms. Armstrong,
residents.
before you start, if you could make sure to state your name, address.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Nicolette Armstrong, 440 Woodland Hills Drive. I've lived here 18 years. I have two concerns that keep me up at night. And I've said this before. I am medically exempt from driving. I have to walk everywhere. I have to go to the bus. I use Lyft. The traffic is going to be so horrific. I really worry for my safety and the safety of other people. It should not be a luxury to be able to take a walk in your neighborhood. You all live here. I've never heard a bad word about any of you. I know you're all nice human beings, and I'm begging you to vote against this. I'm a cancer survivor. I beat it. Going on 11 years. I don't want it back. But the emissions, like the traffic is going to be horrible, but traffic brings emissions and it's terrible. And then what Peter said it very well. What about what they're going to unearth when they start tearing down the trees? So I'm not going to take my whole 3 minutes. I have been on the couch all day today and I never do that because I am so worked up about this. I know that's not your problem, but you are my council members and I am begging you. First of all, you have to realize how smart the people in Churchill are. If you bring us to the table, not me, but other people, we can find a solution. We can find something different that you will be so proud of yourselves if you vote no. It sounds a little like, Mary Tyler Moore, but that's who I am. And I'm begging you to say no. And honestly, you all look like very nice people and you like Churchill. Please help us out. I don't want to take any more time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We do appreciate it. Up next is Ken Balke.
Can you hear me okay?
I did.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. My name's Ken Balke. I reside at 2007 Hampstead Drive with my wife, Ruth Ann. My comments are provided as new facts related to the proposed project, and they're being given as an individual resident and not part of any group or committee. I'm an active registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania a certification I've held and renewed for 45 years. I had the opportunity to read the 83-page report recently submitted on December 3rd by Mr. Metz and Mr. Gallagher, titled Proposed Findings of Facts and Conclusions of Law. When I went through those 33 pages, 3 words jump out at me, or my feelings: dismissive, indifferent, and in some cases insulting to fellow very knowledgeable residents. I myself felt like I got off easy compared to how others were characterized. Let me talk what that dismissive attitude results in here. First, on the trees, they continue to misuse our ordinance on the trees and just dismiss off the 1,400 trees that they want to take out. 1,400 tree removals equivalent to cutting down all the trees in the Royal Oak plan 6 times over. I counted the trees in Royal Oak, it's 6 times over. My biggest concern though is dealing with the stormwater runoff. The applicant didn't realize that I documented in writing my professional written exchange with Ms. Sandra Pavlovic, a registered professional engineer at the National Weather Service, dealing with the 24-hour rainfall distribution that was used by the applicant in dealing with serious weather events that occur over the history of Pittsburgh. Ms. Pavlovic confirmed in writing that that data, end quote, covers the state of Pennsylvania, published in 2003, and the observational data used was up until December 2000. We do not have the funding to update the estimates regularly. Instead, we rely on the user's request and funding to work on the rainfall distribution data. The National Weather Service also has a statement with the data that says the user assumes the entire risk related to this data. Now, during my testimony, I showed calculations and weather distribution that the rainfall distribution doesn't even pick up Hurricane Ivan and several other severe storms that have occurred in the last 20 years. And during cross-examination, I verbally discussed this interface with Mrs. Pavlovic. The significant oversight neither has been acknowledged nor addressed by both the applicant and those reviewing the work on behalf of Churchill Borough, including the applicant's this latest document of December 3rd. Thus, the stormwater calculations for the proposed Churchill Creek project remain in error. The applicant dismisses me as being a retired mechanical engineer from Westinghouse, and my testimony consisted of personalized opinions on subjects over which I have no specialized expertise. The applicant completely overlooked that I'm an active professional engineer and through my teaching at the University of Pittsburgh and my professional activities and volunteer work, continuing to dismiss and ignore my findings, which have been acknowledged by other engineers in the borough and result in consequences. You approving this proposed project tonight.
Ken, your time has passed. You've kind of gone over a little bit, and I apologize for allowing it because I got pulled into one other thing. So I appreciate your comment, but you're gonna have to cut it.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on next is Lolly Owens. Or muted, Miss Owens, so we will wait for you to unmute.
My name is Lolly Owens, and my husband David Owens and I live at 101 Fenwick Drive. We've lived there since May 31st of this year. And we both have listened to the testimony going on, and we've reviewed the documents, and we respectfully ask that you vote no on this conditional use. You can always ask the Hillwood to come back with improved plans, but 2 things stand out to me. The trees, I'm most distressed about the removal of 1,400 trees, more or less, as if trees had no importance to our environment. We are under serious weather events and conditions. Most notably, we had one recently in our state of Illinois, which involved a Amazon warehouse, which was built to the code. And the governor of the state has said, we need to revise our codes because it's clear that with climate change, weather conditions are not going to be as they have been in past, and have been more severe climate than ever. And this proposal does not address any of that. The other I'm confused about, and perhaps you all have an answer to this because you're closer to it than we are these so-called jobs that our young people in high school are going to have thanks to Amazon. I was distressed to read that only 7 of the people who were in that catastrophe with the warehouse recently were Amazon employees, and the other 100 or so were subcontractors. So how does that benefit our community? I'm really confused and concerned about this. And please keep in mind the 101 Fenwick Drive, our house, will not be our house if this goes through, because we do not wish to live in an environment that this Amazon warehouse plant or warehouse will provide. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Up next is Kathy Bordner.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
My name is Kathy Bordner. I live at 1926 Hampstead Drive. And I would like to add on to what Ken was saying about this Hillwood being so disrespectful towards us. They have a bio on me in Exhibit 67, and I think that everything they've issued since then. It's a LinkedIn page, and it's on Catherine Bordner from, I think, Anning Township. I have never lived there. I probably have never been there. They apparently had some intern go to LinkedIn, Google my name, and that came up, and they put that in that document as though that's me, and it's not. And if you Google that woman and look at her Facebook page, she has posts that are completely different from my political viewpoints. And I think that needs to be removed. What a sloppy, lazy approach to doing a document like that. They couldn't get accurate information on the residents. It's shameful. And to think that they might have control of 10% of the surface area of this borough is insane. Okay, now I'm going to go on to the comments that I've prepared, which are a bit different, but Ken got me worked up. I want to thank Alex and Gavin for their patience and hard work. And I want to thank all the media who have covered the story. The Valley Mirror printed several stories and a letter to the editor. The Trib Live really went out of their way and printed a lot of editorials and op-eds that we submitted, and I thank them for that. This story is going to continue. I can encourage all the media as they continue to cover it to present both sides. When you hear about taxes, also report on how Amazon is notorious about avoiding their tax liability. I want to thank all the people who opposed this, who spent hundreds of hours researching and presenting comments about this and are continuing to do that tonight. If council votes yes, it will be the beginning of the next phase, and all who oppose an Amazon warehouse here need to work together to prevent this proposal from happening. And I want to thank Murray Bilby for getting us started, and I want to thank White Ferguson for representing his clients so well. I want to thank my family. I want to thank David, my husband, for putting up with the hundreds of hours that we've spent on this. And I ask you to think about us as you vote tonight. You represent us. You do not represent Hillwood. You do not represent the county executive or Jay Costa or the Democratic Party. You represent us. Vote no. Thank you very much.
Up next is Bob Klein.
Putting everybody in danger.
Up next is Mr. Sequoia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ms. Salata, you are. We say again, Mr. Izakoya, it is your turn to speak. If you would like to speak, Mr. Klein, if you're able to unmute, we'll move you when we see that happens.
Yep.
Oh, there's Mr. Klein. So you're on, sir.
Well, I thought you said Mrs. Ezekoya.
Yes,
thank you very
Mr.
much.
Klein has
Bob
found
Klein,
his mute
1401
button. Ms.
Oakville Road.
Ezekoya, you will be right after Mr. Klein. My apologies.
Okay.
May begin.
All right, here we go. Bob Klein, 1401 Old Beulah Road. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm pretty sure you all know the facts. It's clear what you should do today. It's not an overstatement to say that the future of the town hangs in the balance. I implore you to vote no. Your neighbors are overwhelmingly opposed to this project because it would forever change the nature of this small town in a negative way. Do the right thing and vote no. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Up next is Ms. Ezekoya.
Thank you. And thank you for this extra time to speak again. I'm Ada Ezekoya, 1407 Old Beulah Road. I reside here with my husband, Dr. Ike Ezekoya. We've been here for 36 years. And I don't want to repeat what others have said. Ms. O'Keefe spoke about other Amazon sites with where Amazon has terrible working conditions, and people have found that the structural conditions did not hold up. Look what happened in Kentucky, Indiana, and Illinois when the hurricanes came through. We don't want that or need that. The problems that are going on, the president is trying to work with people about what's happening. Global conditions are changing. We cannot trust that everything will be built according to the world. I'm at a loss for words, honestly. That we would allow this kind of building to go up when things are changing. Please, we're asking our council, as the last two speakers have said, to represent us. We can't afford to have this sort of dangerous construction going on here. Thank you for letting us speak, but please do not go down in history as voting yes for this. Please do not allow it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. I believe up next is Rose Salata.
Good evening. So many of the residents have provided such incredible information, and I would actually like to give you a medical analogy. Westinghouse.
Before you begin, if you can just state your name and
Oh,
address.
I'm sorry.
My
Yes,
apologies.
okay. Rose Salata, 1921 Garrick Drive. I've lived in Churchill for 32 years, and our home is a stone's throw away from the proposed development. I'd like to give you, as a physician, I'd like to give you a medical analogy. Westinghouse R&D site has been diagnosed with a serious illness that requires surgery. And you are in the hot seat. You have a loved one needing to give consent for this surgical procedure. The so-called doctors hired by Hillwood have provided you with preliminary lab and X-ray results. There are no final results on these studies. They've not been appropriately signed off. Other consultants, the experts in our community who have worked diligently to research the best and worst case scenario, have given you in-depth interpretations and have recommended and requested and pleaded with you that additional studies are needed before you sign consent. Hillwood is asking you to sign tonight to proceed with radical surgery on our community, even though you do not have the definitive results. Would you subject loved ones to such a radical surgery if you have incomplete and actually some inaccurate data? And also, is there any alternative therapy for this illness? Thank you very much for listening. You know my thoughts on this. I think, please vote no.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it.
There's a Gary Keene.
There was a
who's
Gary
an
Keene
attendee that
who
I've
was
been
an
trying to promote.
attendee who had raised their hand to speak. We've attempted to promote you. If you accept the promotion, it will allow us to allow you to speak. I want to give a minute to see if we can give him the opportunity to speak. I'm kind of waiting to see if we can allow Mr. Give another attempt for Gary Keene, I believe is the last name, to promote, to give them an opportunity. All right. We don't see Mr. Keene. So with Mr. Keene not accepting promotion, there was another, it looks like Rock. If you can state your full name and address, if you unmute, we'll be able to allow you the opportunity to speak. So Rock, you are currently muted, it appears. You've
Hey
been
there, can you hear me now?
I can. If you can state your name and address, please.
Absolutely, Rocky Mador, and my address is 2244 Harmain Road. And I'll speak on behalf of my wife, Natalie LaRosa, and I. We moved here a couple of years ago. We moved from San Francisco, and while I was there, I was working and have worked at Google for many years as a designer, and wanted to move back home. And so we decided to settle in Churchill. And we've loved it. We've loved living there. We think the area is beautiful, and it's been a really healthy, nice place for us. And it's a place where, as other friends of ours have visited, they too have thought, man, this looks like a great place to live. The cost of living, the quality of life that we have, the homes, the friendliness of the people. And as I assess what's going on here, and I think about our long-term future here, it brings it into question. It makes me think, well, should we stay if this is happening? Because the risks seem much, much greater than the rewards of allowing something like this to come into a residential area. And then I also wonder, in a more long-term future, as everybody asks about how y'all will go down in history, what will it mean if all of the residents decide to leave? What will it mean for the housing values? Who will you represent if no one is there? What will it mean for the schools and for the overall development of our borough? And so those are things that come to mind, and I don't have all the data that everybody else has. And I don't have any legal basis for this. And I only ask as a community member for you guys to say no to this and support us in like keeping the community very, very healthy and happy. And that's all. And I thank you very much for allowing me the time to speak.
Get your comment. Up next is Marianne Baker.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, Ms. Baker.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. My name is Mary Ann Baker. I live at 19 Churchill Road. Members of council, at this point, I don't know what more can be said by me or my neighbors to encourage you to vote no on Hillwood's conditional use permit application. I will just reiterate that you were elected to represent the residents of Churchill. Jay Costa and Rich Fitzgerald do not have the interests of Churchill at heart. They are happy to sacrifice our borough to further their own agenda. Only your no vote can save our community. Please save our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. We are still awaiting Gary Keene. Mr. Keene, we have attempted to promote you. You should get a pop-up that allows you to be promoted. If you accept the promotion, then we will be able to have you speak. We do want to make sure that all of our residents have the opportunity to speak. And so I don't want to move forward and not make sure that if there's a technical difficulty or something that you didn't understand, that wasn't attended to. So if you are having a challenge, we will wait again, resend the invite again. The invite seems to be working fine for promotion. Everyone's been able to be promoted, but we would like to extend the opportunity again to you, Mr. Keene, before moving forward. I can't see it, Alex, so. Mr. Keene. Mr. Keene, I see you've accepted the promotion. If you'd like to unmute, you will be able to speak. So now I just need you to unmute and the floor will be yours, sir. I see you have accepted the promotion. With an adorable picture, I might add. But if you can please unmute, excuse me, that will provide you the opportunity to speak, Mr. Keene. So if you look where the kind of microphone, little red, if you're able to click there, I believe that will give you the opportunity to unmute yourself. I know that folks are eager, but I do not want to move forward knowing that he has selected the promotion. So I know that he does want to speak. And so what we're going to need, Mr. Keene, is for you to unmute yourself. Okay. So he may not have actually accepted the promotion. We were able to get him over to the motion. Well, I'm going to give another minute to allow the opportunity, I think, because I do see the hand was raised. And I don't, even in a case where, even if it was accidental or something happened, I still would like to make sure that each attendee who wanted to speak had that opportunity. So I'll give it just another minute, and then we will move forward from that point. We have another hand up. So, yep. So Ms. George, in the interim, you've been promoted, and we'll kind of move forward with the new group if we can. So up next, we'll go with Ms. George. So if you would like to unmute.
Okay, I unmuted.
And the floor is yours.
Okay, this is my first time speaking, but I have been paying attention.
And I'm a nurse
Or
practitioner.
before
for
you
Pitts-
begin, I realize it is your first time
Oh,
speaking. so
you need my address.
name,
My
name and
name
address.
is,
Yes, ma'am.
my name is Janice George. I live at 12 Churchill Road. And this is my first time speaking, but I have been paying attention. We moved here almost 10 years ago from Squirrel Hill, which is a very desirable neighborhood. And people thought we were crazy to leave there. Great restaurants, you can walk everywhere. But there were certain things that no matter what we did, we couldn't control. We lived on Beacon Street, which we also affectionately called Parkway East 2. Anytime the Parkway was closed or there was an accident or there was traffic, a big game, whatever, the traffic cut through our neighborhood. And these were just automobiles, not necessarily 18-wheelers, but that happened as well. And we couldn't watch TV without turning the volume up and then down and then up and down. We even replaced 42 windows to help with the noise. Didn't work. The house became very dusty because of the traffic. And the ironic thing is we really considered carefully where to move to before we ended up in Churchill. We looked at Mount, we could have moved anywhere. We looked at Mount Lebanon, we looked in Upper St. Clair, we looked in Fox Chapel. And we decided on Churchill because we wanted to get away from all the things that Amazon is going to bring here. We wanted to get away from the traffic. We wanted to get away from the noise. We wanted to get away from the dust and the dirt that was in our entryway every day. And if you don't think that these trucks and cars and the increased traffic is not going to affect the noise, from experience, I can tell you that it will. I could set my clock to the traffic outside. I knew what time to leave for work by the traffic outside. It would pick up. I couldn't get out of my garage. Nobody would stop at the stop sign. I lived on the corner of Beacon and Bartlett. I would sit there for 5 minutes, and if just one person would stop at that stop sign, I would be able to get out. So I left Squirrel Hill and I moved here. And now I'm faced with the possibility of having to move from here for the same exact reason as why my family and I moved from Squirrel Hill. I urge you not to vote for this. I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening.
And thank you for your comments. We
Thank
do
you.
appreciate it. Up next is Ruthie Ray. Ms. Ray, whenever you're able to unmute, you have been promoted. You'll be able to speak next.
Good evening. I just wanted to reiterate my opposition.
Ms. Ray, if you can again just state your name and address, and then we'll start your time.
Good enough. Ruthie Ray, 35 Holland Road. I lived in Churchill for the last 13 years, and my family and I hope that this would be where we would retire and continue to reside for many years to come. And it's unfortunate that, this proposal has been presented by Hillwood. And my ask again is for our council members to consider all of the neighbors in Churchill, our health and well-being, the health and well-being of our children. Many of us have young children that we hoped could continue to walk our neighborhood and enjoy the amenities that are here. And so at this point, I don't want to belabor, but I'm hopeful that our neighbors and myself and all the work that we've done over these last few months have touched each of you in some way, and that you do indeed use your conscience and your knowledge and vote no for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. It's appreciated. Up next is Kate Kerrigan Hill.
Hi, I'm Kate Kerrigan Hill, and I live at 1441 Beulah Road. And I'll repeat again that, as my husband said back in April, we live in the eye of the beast. And I wasn't going to say anything this evening because it's very clear where I stand and where I have stood. I stand with most of Churchill residents in opposing this. But I've listened tonight and I heard two things that really struck me. One was Dr. Sterrett saying how council has power over our lives. And Dr. Salata talking about a surgery analogy. And it struck me because I'm facing surgery in January. And I've never done that before. And I've never had someone who has power over my life like that. And it is damn frightening. And it made me think how council truly has the power over our lives. And I, like the rest of Churchill Future and those who haven't joined us yet, please consider your residents who you truly have power, because in many ways I find myself frightened by not just surgery in January. I find myself frightened by what could happen if we were to remain here, with it being right across the road from us. I find myself frightened by all of the residents who have stated so beautifully and so powerfully how they will be impacted by this, whether it's with their young children, whether it's with our elderly who don't even know how to join this call. And the number of people we have spoken to, going door to door, going to the condos, meeting people that we never would have met before. We have been united and we have been steadfast. And we have learned so much of what this could mean to all of us. And none of us have any desire to just pick up and leave. Like I believe her name was Linda George was saying, she came here to get away from that. We're all here to stay away from that. We're here, whether we just moved here, like Sudi several months ago, Holly Owens back in May, or whether we've lived here like the Pellegrinis for 50 years, or April Klein for 40-something years, or whether you've only been here for about 5 years, like I and my husband have been. We have moved here deliberately, and we've stayed here deliberately. And we have wanted to live here peacefully, and certainly not in a state of being frightened, because someone, some entity, some persons that are to represent us and who we have trusted have power over all of our lives.
Thank you for your comment. It is time, and I appreciate
you.
I appreciate your comment. Next is Garen.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, sir.
Thank you. Could you start my time after I introduce myself?
I have for everyone, so
Thank you.
for you as well.
My name is Garen Ardash. I live at 3405 McCready in the borough of Churchill. There are a few things I want to say. There's been much talk about experts and computer models during past discussions by the applicant. A few things we should all keep in mind. The validity of the output of any mathematical or computer model depends on the accuracy of the input data in all its forms and the model itself. If either of these is not representative of what's being modeled, the results are invalid. When the results fail the common sense test, more often than not, it's because either inputs or the model are inaccurate. Common sense tells us that the addition every day of 336 or more 18-wheel semi-trailer trucks to the parkway through Churchill roads, that is 10,000 a month on Churchill roads and added to the parkway, with the resulting additional damage to the roads, diesel exhaust pollution, and added stress to the rest of the infrastructure would result in a hazard to the health and the safety of the citizens of Churchill and the East Hills, and would constitute a public nuisance. The perceived potential positives of this proposal in the form of tax revenue for the borough and the school district and the jobs created should be examined by the council with a careful eye. Take history as your guide. Amazon did not get to be a trillion-dollar company by spending money paying any more in taxes than they legally owe. They pay what they owe. They make sure they legally owe as little as possible, and they are good at it. Whatever tax revenue may result to the borough should be balanced against the increased policing required, the effect on the infrastructure, the added pollution, noise, traffic, likely decrease in property values, not just close to the facility, but throughout the borough as it becomes known, not as a desirable residential community, not as a beautiful place, but rather the place where the Amazon warehouse is. People may want to move to Churchill. It's a desirable place. They likely won't want to move to Amazonville. The jobs. It's been stated by the applicants in past presentation that the facility will be automated. It will likely be automated to the fullest extent possible. Fewer jobs in a few years. The jobs will be temporary. Amazon's history is a very high turnover in their warehouses with what are referred to as hire to fire practices. This inevitably results in very few employees being able to realize the benefits that are sometimes touted. Council members, I urge you to vote against this proposal. It is bad for Churchill. It is bad for the East Hills. The benefits are an illusion. The damage that will be done to our community is very real. It is not a choice of this or nothing, as some have said. Churchill deserves better. The East Hills deserve better. We can do better. Reject this. Demand better. Don't let people who don't live here dictate the future of Churchill. Insist on development more in keeping with the community we have and what we want to create in the future. Thank you for your time. Please consider this carefully. This is the future of Churchill. I urge you to make the right decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment as well. Up next, I'm sorry, you said was Ruth. She already spoke. So Ruthie Ray, was there someone else there that wanted to comment as well?
No, I'm not sure what's happening. I don't
Okay.
think I have my hand raised anymore.
Not a problem. Just wanted to make sure. As I say, I don't want to miss anyone or neglect to make sure everyone has an opportunity. So we saw it. So I just want to double check. Up next is Diana Jurowitz.
My name is Diana Jurowitz, and I live at 213 Thornberry Drive. I'm in agreement with all my fellow residents who have spoken tonight against the Amazon coming into our community. I have lived here for over 30 years and would like to continue to live in Churchill, which is a quiet, beautiful neighborhood. I feel Amazon coming into our area would be a detriment to our community, and I would beg you to vote no to this, to Amazon coming into our community tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jurowitz, for your comments. Up next is Robert Guffey.
Thank you, Robert Guffey, Guffey. I'm at 2107 Suzanne Drive, and I've lived in Churchill since 2012. I don't have prepared remarks tonight. I've spoken before about the borough code and how it protects public safety and the need to follow the borough code. The code sets a very clear and very high threshold for what is and is not permitted in a conditional use application. It says that it prohibits any element or any condition that may be dangerous, injurious, or noxious to any other property or persons. That is the threshold as defined by the law, and it is designed to protect the public. It is designed to protect us from the kind of temptation that we now face. And others have spoken in the public hearings and tonight about the ways in which this development runs a very high risk of contributing factors that are dangerous, injurious, or noxious, and therefore would be prohibited by the code. The issue that's in front of you tonight is not about whether or not you like Amazon. I like Amazon. I shop at Amazon. I have nothing against Amazon. The issue is whether this application meets the standards set forth in the borough code. And really the issue is whether that code matters or not. Your responsibility, as I see it, is to uphold the code. And I urge you to do that by voting against an application that so clearly violates it. Thank you.
Mr. Guffey, for your comment. Move forward. I think we have someone, 2 hands up. I know that we were unable so far to get Mr. Keene. We also have okay. So we are to Mr. Keene at this point. So we'll give again the kind of 1 minute for Mr. Keene. We've tried to accommodate Mr. Keene, but it has not worked well so far. So I am going to give Mr. Keene just about 30 seconds more, and then I think we're going to move forward. Yeah, the 2 raised hands are someone who spoke and Mr. Keene. The call-ins are also available through this process, if I'm correct. Am I correct? Are there any additional call-ins that I would have to identify? Okay, let's make sure that they have the opportunity to speak as well. So we're gonna start with David Owens. Actually, you just raised your hand, so why don't we promote Mr. Owens and allow Mr. Owens to speak. If you want to unmute, the floor will be yours.
Good evening. Again, join you to not only praise the council for all its deliberations.
Mr. Owens, I apologize to interrupt. If you could state your name and address before you begin, that would be outstanding.
My name is David Owens. I live at 101 Fenwick Drive. I've been a resident here for less than 1 year. I again praise the council for all its due diligence and hard work in deliberating this issue. I do want to point out, as I have mentioned in an earlier objection to this proposal, that this is ill-conceived, ill-timed, and totally inappropriate for a community such as Churchill. There has been only one positive speaker for this proposal this evening, Mr. Grotzimmer, if I can remember his name correctly. And he reiterated all of the reasons why you were originally approached by Amazon and Hilburton to consider this proposal. You have seen and heard all of the information that's been provided by this community, its resources and very powerful professional opinions that this is a totally inappropriate and ill-conceived opportunity that should be rejected immediately. My closing statement is really, do not drink the Kool-Aid that you have been presented by those in higher authorities who only want to make a political name for themselves, from the governor down to our local Allegheny County commissioner. This is totally inappropriate for this community, and I, as my wife has already mentioned, will be the first to put a for sale sign in front of our house if you vote yes for this proposal. Thank you for your consideration. And again, do not drink this Kool-Aid. It will poison this community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I'm going to move next to Mr. Waters.
Yes, Glenn Waters, 2425 Marbury Road, and 30 years resident. And first and foremost, I'd like to say I am in direct.
Did you?
Can you hear me?
Mr. Owens, you are unmuted. If you could please mute yourself.
You vote yes for this.
I'm sorry about that, Mr. Waters. We're going to restart your time.
No problem. Thank you.
You can begin.
Okay, I'm Glenn Waters, 2425 Marbury Road. A 30 years resident in Churchill. First and foremost, I'd just like to say I am in opposition to this Hillwood plan for an Amazon distribution center in Churchill, Pennsylvania. A few years ago, some more threats came to the borough in the form of frackers. They came with overalls and helmets, and the borough turned them away. And the council turned them away and saved our borough. Again, a threat arises here and now. Only they come with briefcases, suits and ties. This is corporate, large corporate America, seeing a place that they like. We like it too. Lots of good access. However, they would not be a good neighbor. Most recently, many of stockholders of Amazon have said and stated that they want to have an investigation into Amazon's management practices and labor since the Indiana episode arose where they would not let workers leave or threaten to fire them. As far as revenue, a recent article in the Tribune Review stated that the revenue would be 2.3 to 2.5 million for the school district and only $660,000 for the borough. Way, way down from what was anticipated. Moreover, the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, had an article stated a few weeks ago that these Amazon jobs aren't really what they're cracked up to be. Washington Post, his own newspaper. So I just want to say, this is not a good neighbor. We're having lots of my colleagues have stated and pointed out excellent reasons why they don't meet the criteria for the conditional use permit. Moreover, they did state why they've been trying for over 2 years to get the land use approved. That hasn't been approved. So why approve it once they get the conditional use? It's all go for them. They can take as long as they want. We need to stop them and stop them now because they haven't even figured out or even really tried to figure out.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. I appreciate your comment, but that is your time. Thank
you.
I'm going to move now to the phone lines. I'm going to begin with the 412-660-4318. I'm going to, if you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself. If not, I will move on to the next phone line. Okay, now you've promoted them all, so now I will need your comment on the order, Alex. Next is ending in 9473. Oh, that's April. Okay, so April, I know you have spoken.
Hey, it's April. I already spoke. Thank you.
I gotcha. Next, again, I'm going to go to 4318, ending in 4318. Who's next? Ending in 6653. If you'd like to unmute. I'm not sure if you are interested in commenting or not. I just want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to. And so I'm going through all the phone lines, giving you the opportunity to speak as well. Next is 5703. Moving on to 4217. Actually, is there anybody else after that? I think that's the phones, and then I think we have a couple more who've raised their hand. All right. Okay, and the last on the phone line is it's just listed as call-in user 2. So if you're on the phone line and you haven't spoken, feel free to unmute. Right, hearing none on the phone line, I'm going to move on. Joanne Skanga, you are up next.
Hi, this is Joanne Skanga at 30 Churchill Road. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Hi, my husband and I have lived in Churchill for over 30 years. And I would like to say it's obvious after listening to tonight's comments that the majority of the residents oppose the Amazon project. And only one, as I would say, misinformed individual, Eric, I'm not sure his last name, has indicated his support. If this had been a referendum and we would be able to vote on it, would have unanimously been voted down. It's unfortunately that this project has even gotten to this point. Had the residents been informed, we would not be in this position. I hope council listens to the overwhelming majority of their constituents and votes against the Hillwood Amazon project. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We do appreciate that. I believe that, unless I don't see anything else, I believe that wraps up. We have one more. Danielle Weaver, if you want to promote her. Ms. Weaver, if you would like to unmute, the floor is yours.
Danielle Weaver, 880 Graham Boulevard. One of my biggest concerns is the first responders. We live very close to the red light at Graham and William Penn, and there are numerous fire, ambulance, and police officers hourly. And I fear that the traffic caused by these tractor trailers is going to have a negative effect on the response time of the first responders. That site has been vacant for, I think, 20 years. And a few more years and more research should find a suitable occupant. This is not a good choice for the residents of Churchill. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Weaver. Up next is we have Ms. Yankis asking to be promoted. Ms. Yankis, if you want to unmute yourself.
I am unmuted, I believe. It's
The floor
Diana
is
Yankis.
yours.
Thank you. 2210 William Penn Highway, the corner of Graham. And I think we've been very clear about how I feel, and I agree with everybody I've heard from, save one. The one issue that's bothering me tonight is how many times I've heard that property was not used for 20 years. And that's not true. As we know, we had an occupant that had wonderful plans. We saw drawings, and he proposed a movie studio and a hotel and wonderful retail that we would have all loved, Panera's and Starbucks and all that. But that individual did not work out, but it has been used. And I know that neighbors of ours have proposed several other opportunities for businesses there. And it's just been really difficult to deal with the owners. And so I want us to stop thinking it's been vacant for 20 years. Not true. We've tried, we've had problems with owners, we've had problems with owners who owned it and owners who were able to use it. So let's just be clear, it's not a bleak Amazon or nothing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I see that there are no other public commenters at this time. We're going to close public comment and take a 5-minute break for both the people who are captioning for us to give them a chance to breathe. Quite frankly, it is difficult work. And then we will return and move on to the action items. So we'll take a 5-minute break and then return. So this closes public comment. All right, thank you for the 5-minute break. Again, I think our captioner is very hard work. I've worked with a lot of captioners in the deaf community, and I recognize that they do take a moment. So I appreciate everyone's patience during that. We are going to move to the action item. Before we do, I would just point out there are approximately 258 participants here today in the webinar, along with, it appears, 20 or so on Facebook, watching on Facebook as well. Just so people have a kind of understanding of what the audience is for today's special session. That being the case, we're now going to move on to the singular action item that we have today, which is the motion on the table. So I would entertain a motion in any direction.
Mr. President, I motion to approve Resolution 4533, the Churchill Creek Project conditional use application for the property located at 1310 Beulah Road, Pittsburgh, PA 15235, and approving the findings of fact and conclusions of law in support of the decision.
Ms. Ryan Taylor, could I just, for clarification, you skipped what I would view as probably the key sort of term in that motion. In brackets, you need to either select either approving or denying the application. You're approving the resolution regardless. The resolution is either approving or denying the application. So if you wouldn't mind restating that to include either the approval or the denial of the application.
Motion to approve Resolution 4533, approving the Churchill Creek Project conditional use application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. I will open it for discussion.
Okay, Mr. President.
Absolutely.
We have listened and convened for many hours over the last year and considered this development for even longer. We have listened to qualified engineers and consultants and have listened to bright and impassioned opponents of this project. It is going to be a difficult decision. The site that is to be developed is comprised of 130 plus acres of, in my view, blight. This blight needs to be mitigated. The Westinghouse R&D Center left over 20 years ago. The property has passed to other owners that have considered retail, restaurants, hotels, and entertainment options. In the end, they were not economically viable. It has been estimated that the cost to clean up the site is between $15 to $20 million. In 2020, the borough sponsored a series of virtual seminars that brought notable government, academic, business, and engineering experts to discuss the potential of the Westinghouse site. It was all very informative, but no clear option was identified. However, the warehouse and distribution market was mentioned as a specific possibility. Churchill Borough needs commercial tax revenue. In the 20 years since Westinghouse shut down their facility, the borough millage has doubled. There will be future infrastructure requirements that will need to be paid for. Without commercial tax revenue, the future tax onus will be borne by the residents of Churchill. We have spent many hours in developing the conditions that are attached to this approval. Trucks will not be allowed on Churchill Borough roads and will not be allowed to travel south on either Greensburg Pike or Beulah Road. Trucks will not be allowed to idle or park outside of the facility. There will be post-construction studies that will identify issues that may require mitigation at the expense of the owner. There's a guarantee of future minimum property tax revenue of $2.4 million per year for 10 years. It's important to note that this is a conditional use agreement. A land development application will need to be considered by Borough Planning Commission and approved by Borough Council. The land development approval will require rigorous permit application and approval from numerous state and county agencies. I will vote in favor of this conditional use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Further discussion? So in the light of discussion process, both for the residents and for my fellow council people. I will say that this has been a very challenging space for all of us. I know that many of us have gone back and forth several times on the implications of this development. The residents have spoken to us in many different ways. We have heard from residents who have spoken publicly. We have heard from residents who wanted to speak privately. We have heard from residents who have brought very important and concise information to the table. We've heard from residents, quite frankly, that have brought impassioned but not necessarily accurate information to the table. All of that has been true. Our job, of course, will always be to make sure that we are reviewing the information and determine whether or not they have met the conditional use that is required under the Borough Code. I'm not one to speak about whether I like Amazon or don't like Amazon. I can only say that as I look at this with the realistic eye of what the future of Churchill does look like. There are parts of this that will be disruptive and difficult if it moves forward. There are also real disruption and difficulties if it doesn't. Both things are true. I've said from the beginning that anyone who told me that this project was all good was lying to me, and anyone who told me that this project was all bad was also lying to me. There is a very, very difficult space that we have to tread. We must find what is best for the future of Churchill. I normally do not speak before other members. I did not see other members speak. I apologize if others wanted to speak, because I will certainly allow that and stop. So if there are others, before I say any other further comment, I'm going to stop and let others speak and then return. My apologies. I did not know that there were. So Diane, if you'd like to speak.
Yes, Mr. President, I'm sorry. I didn't move quite quickly enough there. I just want to start by saying that when you run for office in a small community like ours, you never dream that you could be in a position like this. And we started out being in a very serious position right off the bat when I was elected with the fracking situation. And several people mentioned that. And yes, in fact, we were successful about that. I just want our citizens to know that I'm very gratified by the way that they have communicated with one another, the passion with which they have approached this issue, the connections that they've made with one another. These are all classic examples of what makes Churchill a special place. I've lived here for 23 years. And one of the things that has struck me as this has gone on is that I at times have the feeling that the people in our community think that we all live somewhere else. We don't. We live here, we have the same concerns and passions and fears and all of it that all of you have. The difference is we have the responsibility to make the decision. And in making that decision, one of the most frustrating things to me about this process has been that people always assume that we have more power than we do. Yes, we do have power. We have a lot of power, but we have the power to make decisions within a framework of the law. And when it comes to a decision like this, all of the things that everyone has talked about are legitimate concerns. We, however, have to meet the burden of being able to support and substantiate our opposition. And at this point, when let's just take, one of the air quality as an example. I'm one of those people who's very passionately concerned about the environment. And I feel very frustrated because what I'm confronted with at this point is that I wish that the standards were more strict. They are not. We did not succeed in changing the standards in terms of air quality. I can't make the decision based on what I wish were the truth, what I wish had been enacted. I have to make a decision as an elected official based on what the law is, what the standards are now. Those of you who've looked at this closely, the studies that have been submitted to the council from the applicant, if those studies meet the current professional standards, that is a basis for approving those studies. We have to accept what is within the standards and within the law. This is one of the most difficult decisions I have ever made. I don't mind telling you. I am looking forward to the day that I can sit down with as many of you as possible for hours and hours, if that's what you would like, to go over all of this with great care and to explain to you all the things that I've learned in the last 2 years about this process. At the end of the day, I'm going to have to make a decision, not based on how I feel as an individual citizen, but what my responsibility is as an elected member of the Churchill Borough Council. And I will do that. The consequences to me, my family, my home, what I would like to see in the borough cannot rule my decision today. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President. Anybody else have any comments that they would like to make or discussion points?
Yes, Mr. President, if I could make a comment.
Floor is yours.
First, I just wanted to say thanks to the residents for all the efforts and comments. Thanks to our borough manager, Alex, for organizing all the meetings, all the assistance provided to that he provided to the residents to allow them to watch, to participate in the meetings. Thanks to our solicitor, Gavin, for presiding over the conditional use hearing. And finally, thanks to all of my fellow members of council for all the hard work that has gone into this process. As Diane said, this is not an easy decision. This is a very difficult decision for all of us. And I will keep my comments brief here. My concerns about the project have always been environmental, and among the requirements for the conditional use at 304-37.1 is that the applicant will make reasonable efforts to utilize environmentally positive design criteria for the distribution center where feasible. Based on the applicant's case, including all their submissions and exhibits, which they provided, I cannot conclude that the applicant has made those reasonable efforts. And as a result, I do not believe that the applicant has met their burden for conditional use. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments or discussion items from council?
I would like to just say that I support what Adam has just said completely. I don't think there's been an adequate effort to meet those. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Greco. Is there any other comments before I move forward? I'll make one last comment. If there are no other comments from other council members, then I can move forward. Hearing none. As I was saying before, this has been a very, very difficult process for all of the council members. As those of you in the public, who I commend for your participation, sitting through the hours as we sat through, and then our deliberative process, and even before that. One thing that I would point out as we kind of looked at this, and I think Ms. Law alluded to the space of what our obligations are. There was a number of points that were made throughout this process where I think people were concerned about, for instance, deficiencies that were named by state or federal governing bodies. They have an obligation to address those deficiencies. It's not as if they get to move forward and not respond to the deficiencies that are being pointed out. There's a number of steps along the way, and this is one of many of them. It has been a very, very difficult process. But in reviewing, we have to make the conclusion of whether or not we felt that they met the threshold of what the conditional use is. There are several of us, and I won't kind of point out the names, but I do know there are several of us who are frustrated at what the thresholds are. Unfortunately, that is not something for many of the issues that we control. I don't control weight limits the way that I would like on state and public roads. We were able to address the ones that are within the control, and to address the ones in which the state has or the county has already set forth. but there remains concerns. And it will be the council's obligation, if this were to move forward, to ensure that we do everything we can to protect our residents. You know, I do not take this lightly. The people of Churchill have spoken, as I said, to me on many different forms and in many different positions. I have listened to all of them. You know, their concerns, as Ms. Law said, are our concerns because they are our neighbors. We live here. I don't live 5 miles away, 10 miles away, 20 miles away. I live right next to some of the most vocal opponents. And I've gotten some of the most vocal support on my block, both of those, right on my block. So I say that to say that I look at this through the lens of what our obligation is and whether they met the conditional use, and whether or not we have a defensible position if we felt that they didn't. Looking at it from my vantage point, I would say that they have met what is the conditional use, not that I am comfortable with where some of the thresholds were set. They were set long before, or by other bodies, quite frankly. So that is my position, and I do want to make sure it was known publicly beyond just kind of a yay or nay. Having said that, if there's no other discussion, we will move to a roll call vote for this.
Mr. President, I will do them in order here. So when you hear your name, please state yay or nay. Councilmember Castilla,
I vote in favor.
Councilmember Renthaler,
Yes.
Councilmember Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Greco,
No, Opposed.
Councilmember
sorry.
no problem. Thank you. Councilmember McDowell,
No.
Councilmember Law,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorn,
Yes. The motion carries. That being said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for today's meeting and for all the hard work. There's much more work to do. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Good night.